The ship hung in the sky like a silver moon. It had been there for 3 weeks now, floating silently above the Pacific Ocean. The whole world watched it. Some people prayed. Some people cried. Some people simply stared at their screens and wondered if everything they knew was about to change. Han Taiho was not watching the ship. He was sitting in a small room underground, reading a file that was marked with red stamps that said "Top Secret" in 5 different languages. He was 32 years old, thin, with tired eyes and hair that was always a little messy. He worked for the United Earth Contact Division, a department that did not exist 6 months ago. "You want me to learn their language?" Taiho said. It was not a question. The woman across the table nodded. Her name was Director Yoon, and she had not slept in 4 days. "Every linguist we sent up there failed. They say the alien language is impossible. It cannot be written down. It cannot be recorded properly. It changes based on feelings, they say." Taiho closed the file. "Feelings? That is what they tell us. The aliens, they call themselves the Volans. They communicate through sounds, but also through body movement. And something else. Something our people cannot understand." Director Yoon leaned forward. "But you are different, Taiho. You learned 6 languages before you were 20. You learned the Pira language when everyone said it was too difficult. You do not learn languages the normal way." "I learn by listening to people," Taiho said simply. "Not just their words. I listen to what they mean. Exactly." Director Yoon pushed a small badge across the table. "That is why you are going up there tomorrow." The shuttle ride to the Velan ship took 40 minutes. Taiho sat alone in the back, wearing a simple gray uniform. Through the small window, he watched the Earth grow smaller and smaller until it looked like a blue marble. Then the silver ship filled his entire view, and he felt his heart beating fast in his chest. The inside of the ship was beautiful in a strange way. The walls were smooth and white, curving like the inside of a seashell. The air smelled clean, like rain on fresh leaves. Soft light came from everywhere and nowhere. Taiho's footsteps made no sound on the floor. A human guide led him through long hallways until they reached a large room with a window that showed the stars. "Wait here," the guide said, and then left. Taiho waited. After several minutes, a door opened on the other side of the room, and she walked in. Taiho had seen pictures of the Volans before. They looked almost human, but not quite. Their skin was pale, almost silver in certain lights. Their eyes were larger than human eyes, and they had no visible ears. They were tall and thin, and they moved like water flowing. But pictures could not prepare him for seeing one in person. The Volan woman stopped, a few meters away from him. She was wearing something that looked like a long robe made of soft blue fabric. Her hair, if it was hair, was white and fell past her shoulders. Her eyes were the color of deep space, dark with small points of light in them, like stars. She looked at him the way someone might look at an insect. Not with hate, just with complete lack of interest. "I am Lara," she said. Her voice was strange. It had layers to it, like several people speaking at once in perfect harmony. "I am assigned to teach you our language. This is a waste of my time, but my superiors believe it is necessary." Taiho bowed slightly. "I am Han Taiho. Thank you for teaching me." Lyra did not respond to his thanks. She walked to the window and looked out at the stars. "Your people have sent 17 linguists to learn Velan. All of them failed. Most of them could not even speak a single correct sentence after months of study. Your species communicates through noise, simple vibrations in the air. You have no depth, no truth in your words." Taiho did not argue. He simply listened. "Velan is not just sound," Lyra continued. "It is emotion made real. When we speak, we share what we feel. We cannot lie. We cannot hide. Every word carries our truth. She turned to look at him with those star-filled eyes. Your kind can say anything without feeling it. You say, I am happy, while feeling sad. You say, I love you, while feeling nothing. This is why you cannot learn our language. You do not know how to be honest. Taiho thought about this for a moment. Then I will learn to be honest, he said. Lyra made a sound that might have been a laugh, but it sounded cold. You will fail like the others, but we will try anyway. The Council requires proof that we made an effort before we leave your planet behind. Leave us behind? Your species is being evaluated, Lyra said. The Velen Collective has contacted many civilizations across the galaxy. We form partnerships with those who have value. Those who do not. She paused. We simply move on. Earth has shown nothing special so far. Your technology is primitive. Your people fight among themselves. Your planet is dying because of your own actions. We see no reason to invest in humanity. The words hurt, but Taiho did not show it. He understood something important in that moment. This was not just a language lesson. This was a test. Humanity's future might depend on what happened in this room. When do we start? He asked. Lyra looked at him for a long moment. Something flickered in her eyes, surprise. Perhaps that he was not angry or defensive. Now, she said. Sit. Taiho sat on the floor. There were no chairs. Lyra sat across from him, her movements graceful and slow. She held up one hand, palm facing him. This is the first word, she said. And then she made a sound that it was not like any sound Taiho had ever heard. It was high and low at the same time. It vibrated in his chest. And as she made the sound, her fingers moved in a small pattern, and her face changed slightly. Her eyes softened, her lips curved. This word means beginning, Lyra said. Repeat it. Taiho tried. The sound that came from his mouth was rough and wrong. His hand movement was clumsy. His face felt stiff. Lyra shook her head. No, you are just making noise. You are not feeling anything. The word beginning must carry hope. It must carry uncertainty. It must carry the fear and excitement of something new. She stood up. We will try again tomorrow. She left the room without another word. Taiho sat alone, looking out at the stars. He thought about what she said. He thought about how humans speak without feeling, how they say words that mean nothing. He closed his eyes and remembered his mother teaching him his first words as a child. He remembered the feeling of beginning, the fear, the hope, the love. Tomorrow, he would try again. And this time, he would not just speak. He would feel. 3 weeks passed on the Velen ship. Every day, Taiho sat in the same room with the large window. And every day, Lyra tried to teach him her language. And every day, he failed. The sounds he made were empty. The movements of his hands were mechanical. Lyra would shake her head and tell him he was just making noise, not speaking. She would leave the room early, her disappointment obvious without words. But Taiho did not give up. Each night, he returned to his small sleeping quarters on the ship and practiced alone. He recorded Lyra's voice and listened to it over and over. He watched videos of their lessons and studied every tiny movement she made. He filled notebooks with observations. You are wasting your time, Lyra said one morning. It was the 22nd day. The other linguists worked just as hard. They studied just as much. Some of them had machines that could analyze every sound wave. None of it mattered. Taiho looked at her. Can I ask you a question? Lyra seemed surprised. The other linguists had only ever asked about grammar and pronunciation. What question? Where did you grow up? Lyra was silent for a moment. Why you want to know this? Because I want to understand you, Taiho said simply. Not just your language. You. It was a strange request. Lyra did not know how to respond. Among the Velans, personal questions were common because nothing could be hidden anyway. But no human had ever asked her about herself. They only asked about rules and structures and vocabulary. I grew up on a moon called Essa, Lyra finally said. It was a small place, very quiet. The sky was always purple, and there were great oceans of silver water. Was it beautiful? Yes. The word came out softer than she intended. It was beautiful. Taiho nodded. Tell me more. Tell me about your favorite place there. And so Lyra talked. She talked about the crystal caves near her childhood home, where a light made rainbows on the walls. She talked about her mother, who was a musician, and her father, who studied the stars. She talked about the first time she saw a ship leave her moon for distant worlds, and how she knew she wanted to travel among the stars. Taiho listened. He did not take notes. He did not record anything. He simply listened. When Lyra finished, she realized an hour had passed. She had not taught him a single word. This was a waste of time, she said, but her voice lacked its usual coldness. Can we try again? Taiho asked. The first word. Beginning. Lyra held up her hand. Very well. Repeat after me. She made the sound. Taiho closed his eyes. He thought about Essa, the purple sky and silver oceans. He thought about a young girl, looking up at ships flying to the stars, full of hope and wonder. He thought about what it felt like to want something so badly that it hurt. Then he made the sound dot. It was not perfect. It was still rough around the edges, but something was different. There was something real in it. Lyra felt it in her chest, a small vibration of actual emotion. She stared at him. How did you do that? I listened to you, Taiho said. When you talked about your home, I could hear it in your voice. The hope, the excitement, the fear of something new. That is what beginning means to you. So I tried to feel it too. Lyra did not speak for a long time. No human had ever done this before. They had always tried to learn Velan like it was a code to be broken, a puzzle to be solved. But Taiho was different. He was learning it like it was a person to be understood. Again, she said. Say it again. Taiho said it again. And again. Each time, it got a little better. Over the next 2 weeks, everything changed. Lyra stopped teaching Taiho from textbooks. Instead, she talked to him. She told him stories about her life, her world, her people. And Taiho listened, absorbing not just the words, but the feelings behind them. He learned the word for joy by hearing Lyra describe her first journey through space. He learned the word for sorrow when she told him about a friend who died young. He learned the word for peace when she described watching the stars from the observation deck late at night. Each word came with a memory. Each memory came with an emotion. And slowly, Taiho's pronunciation improved, not because he practiced more, but because he understood more. Tell me about your home, Lyra said one evening. They were sitting by the window, looking at Earth below. It had become their routine. She talked, and then he talked. Taiho thought about it. I grew up in a small town near the mountains. My father was a fisherman. My mother was a teacher. We did not have much money, but we were happy. What made you happy? My mother used to read to me every night, Taiho said. She read old stories about heroes and monsters, about love and loss. I think that is why I love languages. Every language is like a different way of telling stories, a different way of seeing the world. Lyra listened. She had never thought of language that way before. To her people, language was simply truth made visible. But to Taiho, language was something more. It was connection. It was understanding. It was love. Your mother, Lyra said. She is still alive? Taiho shook his head. She died 5 years ago. Cancer. I am sorry. Thank you. Taiho looked at the stars. I miss her every day. But when I learn a new language, I feel close to her again. Like I'm continuing what she started. Lyra felt something strange in her chest. It was not pity. It was something deeper. She was beginning to understand why this human was different from the others. He did not learn languages to gain power or knowledge. He learned them to connect with people, to love them. Try this word, Lyra said. She made a sound that was complex and beautiful, like a sad song. What does it mean? It means to carry someone in your heart after they are gone. To love them, even in their absence. Taiho closed his eyes. He thought about his mother. Her smile, her voice, the way she smelled like flowers and old books. The empty space she left behind when she died. He made the sound. It was perfect. Lyra felt tears forming in her eyes. She had never cried in front of a human before. She had never cried in front of anyone except her own family. But the emotion in Taiho's voice was so pure, so real, that it touched something deep inside her. You are not like the others, she said quietly. I just want to understand, Taiho said. That is all I have ever wanted. Lyra looked at him for a long moment. Then she did something she had never done with any human before. She smiled. It was a small smile, just a slight curve of her lips. But to Taiho, it was like the sun rising after a long night. Tomorrow, Lyra said, I will teach you more. She stood up and walked to the door. But before she left, she turned back. The word you just spoke, she said. You spoke it perfectly. No human has ever done that before. Then she was gone. Taiho sat alone by the window, looking at the stars. He did not know it yet, but something had changed between them. Something small, but important. A beginning. The message came on a cold morning. Lyra was walking to the teaching room when a senior officer stopped her in the hallway. His name was Voren, and he was one of the highest-ranking members of the Velen Council on the ship. The council is not pleased, Voren said. His voice was flat, carrying no emotion, which in Velen was itself a statement of displeasure. 2 months have passed. The human shows no significant progress. He is making progress, Lyra said. He is different from the others. Different how? Can he speak our language? Lyra hesitated. He can speak some words. Simple ones. But he's learning in a way that simple words. Voren cut her off. After 2 months, he can speak simple words. The previous linguists reached the same level in 2 weeks before they failed completely. He stepped closer to her. The council has made a decision. We will classify humanity as a non-partner species within 30 days. You have that long to show results, or we leave this planet behind. Lyra felt cold. 30 days is not enough time. Then use the time wisely. Voren walked away, his footsteps silent on the smooth floor. Lyra stood alone in the hallway for a long moment. 30 days. It was not enough. No matter how different Taiho was, no matter how hard he tried, 30 days was not enough to learn a language that took Velen children 10 years to master. She went to the teaching room. Taiho was already there, sitting by the window as usual. He looked up when she entered and smiled. Good morning. Lyra did not smile back. We need to work faster. Taiho noticed the change in her voice. What happened? The council is impatient. They want to leave Earth behind. They see no value in humanity. Lyra sat down across from him. We have 30 days. After that, your people will be abandoned. No technology sharing. No cultural exchange. No protection. You will be alone in the galaxy. Taiho was quiet for a moment. Then we should start. They worked harder than ever before. Lyra taught him phrase after phrase, trying to push him faster. But the harder she pushed, the worse Taiho became. His pronunciation grew rough. His emotions became forced. He was trying too hard, and it showed. No, Lyra said after another failed attempt. You are not feeling it. You are just making sounds. I am trying, Taiho said. There was frustration in his voice. I am trying as hard as I can. Try harder. How? Taiho stood up suddenly. How do I try harder? You want me to feel things on command, but feelings do not work that way. I cannot just decide to feel joy or sorrow or peace. Emotions come when they come. They cannot be forced. Lyra felt her own frustration rising. Then perhaps your species is exactly what the Council believes. Shallow, empty, incapable of true depth. The words hung in the air between them. Taiho looked at her with hurt in his eyes. Lyra immediately regretted what she said, but she did not take it back. She was too tired, too worried, too afraid of failing. Let us try again, she said coldly. The formal greeting. The one used for diplomatic meetings. Taiho took a deep breath and tried to calm himself. The formal greeting was complicated. It required expressing respect, humility, and hope all at once. He had practiced it many times but never got it right. He began to speak. The sounds came out, but they were wrong. His hand movements were stiff. His face showed nothing but stress. Stop, Lyra said. You are saying nothing. You are making noise. Taiho tried again. Again, he failed. This is useless, Lyra said. She stood up and walked toward the door. Perhaps the Council is right. Perhaps there is nothing special about humanity after all. Something broke inside Taiho. He thought about his mother dying in a hospital bed. He thought about holding her hand as she took her last breath. He thought about the years of loneliness that followed, the empty house, the silence where her voice used to be. He thought about all the people on Earth who would never know that aliens came and left without a second look, that humanity was judged and found lacking. And then he spoke. The sound that came from his mouth was not the formal greeting. It was something else. It was raw and broken and filled with pain. It was the sound of grief, deep, heavy, suffocating grief. Lyra froze at the door dot. She turned around slowly. Her eyes were wide. Her hands were shaking. What? What did you just say? She whispered. Taiho did not know what he had said. He had not planned to say anything. The words, if they were words, had come from somewhere deep inside him, a place he usually kept locked away. I do not know, he said honestly. I was not thinking. I just felt. Lyra walked back to him. She was looking at him differently now, like she was seeing him for the first time. You expressed grief. True grief. The kind that cannot be faked. The kind that comes from real loss. My mother, Taiho said quietly. I was thinking about my mother. Lyra sat down across from him again. Her coldness was gone, replaced by something like wonder. No human has ever done that before. None of the linguists. None of the diplomats. They could learn the sounds. They could copy the movements. But they could never feel. They could never make the words real. Maybe they were trying too hard, Taiho said. Like I was. Yes. Lyra nodded slowly. Yes, perhaps that is true. Velen is not a language you can force. It is a language that must flow from your heart. She looked at him for a long moment. In the starlight from the window, her silver skin seemed to glow. Her star-filled eyes were softer than he had ever seen them. Your people feel so much, she said, almost to herself. We always thought humans were shallow because you could lie with your words. Because you could say things you did not mean. But perhaps we were wrong. Perhaps the opposite is true. Perhaps you feel so much that you had to learn to hide it just to survive. Taiho thought about this. Humans have many emotions. Too many, sometimes. We get overwhelmed. We learn to push feelings down, to keep them inside. But that does not mean we do not feel them. No, Lyra agreed. That does not mean you do not feel them. Silence fell between them, but it was not an uncomfortable silence. It was the silence of understanding. The council believes humanity has no value, Lyra said finally. They think you are primitive, chaotic, self-destructive. Maybe we are, Taiho said. But we are also more than that. Lyra smiled slightly. Yes, I am beginning to see that. She stood up and walked to the window. Earth and below them blue and white and beautiful. Billions of people lived on that small world, each one with their own griefs and joys, their own loves and losses. 29 days, Lyra said. We have 29 days to prove that humanity is worth saving. Taiho stood beside her. Is it possible? Lyra looked at him. Something in her eyes was different now. Something warm. I do not know, she said. But for the first time, I believe it might be. She turned back to the window. Without thinking, Taiho reached out and put his hand on her shoulder, a simple human gesture of comfort. Lyra did not pull away. They stood together, looking at the stars, and for the first time since she arrived on this ship, Lyra felt something she had not expected. Hope. Lyra began visiting Taiho outside of their lessons. She told herself it was for research. The council wanted proof that humans had value, and the only way to provide that proof was to understand them better. She was simply gathering information. That was all. But deep inside, she knew it was more than that. It started with small questions. One evening, she found Taiho in the observation deck, listening to something through small devices in his ears. She sat beside him and watched his face. His eyes were closed. He was smiling. What are you doing? She asked. Taiho opened his eyes and removed one of the devices from his ear. Listening to music. Lyra knew the word, but she did not fully understand it. Valens have music too. We use it for ceremonies, for important moments. Humans use it for everything, Taiho said. When we are happy, when we are sad, when we are alone, when we are together. But why? Lyra leaned closer, genuinely curious. You already have language. You can say that you are happy or sad. Why do you need music? Taiho thought about it. Because sometimes words are not enough. Sometimes feelings are too big to fit into words. Music lets us express things that cannot be spoken. He offered her one of the ear devices. Lyra hesitated, then put it in her ear. The sound that filled her head was strange and beautiful. It was not like violin music, which was precise and structured. This was wild, full of ups and downs, like a living thing. There were no words, just sounds rising, falling, swelling, fading. And yet, somehow, she understood. She felt something in her chest, a tightness that was not pain but something close to it. It was longing. It was hope. It was the feeling of reaching for something you cannot touch. This is beautiful, she whispered. This is Beethoven, Taiho said. He wrote this music 200 years ago. He was deaf when he created it. He could not hear the sounds, but he could feel them in his heart. Lyra stared at him. He made music without being able to hear? Yes. How is that possible? Because the music was inside him, Taiho said. The sounds were just a way to share it with others. Lyra did not speak. She listened until the music ended, and then she sat in silence for a long time. The next day, she asked him another question. I have observed that humans cry, she said. I have seen recordings of your people crying at stories. Stories that they know are not real. Why do they cry for things that never happened? Taiho smiled. It was a question he had never thought about before. Because when we hear a story, we feel it as if it were real. We put ourselves in the place of the characters. Their pain becomes our pain. Their joy becomes our joy. But it is not real pain. It is imagined. Does that matter? Taiho asked. If I tell you a story about a mother who loses her child, and you feel sadness in your heart, is that sadness not real? The story may be fake, but the feeling is true. Lyra considered this. In Velen culture, everything was about truth. Lies were impossible. Fiction was seen as a lesser form of communication entertainment, perhaps, but nothing important. But humans were different. They used fiction to explore truth. They used imagined stories to feel real emotions. It was strange. It was backwards. And yet, it was also wonderful. "Tell me a story," Lyra said suddenly. Taiho was surprised. "What kind of story?" "Any story. A story that makes humans cry." Taiho thought for a moment. Then he told her an old Korean folktale about a young woman who waited her whole life for her husband to return from war. She waited by the shore every day, watching the horizon. Years passed. She grew old. He never came back. In the end, she turned into a stone, still watching, still waiting. When he finished, Lyra realized there were tears in her eyes. "This story is not true," she said. "Humans cannot turn into stone." "No," Taiho agreed. "But the feeling is true. The waiting, the hope, the love that does not end even when there is no reason to hope anymore. That is real." Lyra wiped her eyes. She had never cried at a story before. She did not know she could. Day after day, she asked more questions. Why did humans keep animals as companions, creatures that could not speak or understand complex ideas? Taiho explained that love did not require understanding, that sometimes simple presence was enough. Why did humans fight wars when they knew war caused suffering? Taiho said that humans were complicated. They could feel love and hate at the same time. They could know something was wrong and still do it. They were imperfect, broken in many ways, but they kept trying to be better. Why did humans create art? Why did they dance? Why did they laugh? Each question led to more questions. Each answer revealed something new about humanity. And with each conversation, Lyra felt herself changing. She began to see humans not as primitive creatures, but as beings of extraordinary depth. They felt more than any species she had ever encountered. They loved more fiercely, grieved more deeply, hoped more desperately. They were messy and contradictory and sometimes foolish, but they were also beautiful in ways she had never imagined. One night, Taiho asked her a question in return. "Do Velens fall in love?" Lyra was quiet for a moment. "We form bonds," she said carefully. "Deep connections with others. We share our thoughts and feelings completely. There is no hiding, no secrets. Is that the same as love?" "I used to think so." Lyra looked at him. "But now I am not sure. Human love seems different. It is not just about sharing truth. It is about choosing someone even when you cannot fully understand them. It is about staying even when staying is hard." "Yes," Taiho said softly. "That is love." Lyra felt something shift inside her. A door opening that she did not know was closed. "I have never felt that before," she admitted. "My people are connected from birth. We grow up knowing everyone around us. There are no surprises, no mysteries. Everything is clear. That sounds peaceful." "It is," Lyra paused. "But it is also empty, in a way. There is no discovery, no excitement, no fear. Fear. Human love seems to include fear," Lyra said. "Fear of loss, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. I have read about it. Your stories are full of it." "Love without fear is not really love," Taiho said. "It is just comfort. Real love means being vulnerable. It means risking everything." Lyra looked at him. In the starlight, his face was gentle, open, honest. He was not trying to hide anything from her. He never had been. I think I understand now, she said quietly. Why you are different from the other linguists. Why is that? Because you love language, Lyra said. Not as a tool or a skill, but as a bridge. You do not learn words. You learn people. Taiho smiled. That is the only way I know how to learn. They sat together in comfortable silence. Outside the window, Earth turned slowly in the darkness. 20 days remained until the council made its decision. But in that moment, neither of them was thinking about the council. Lyra was thinking about how strange and wonderful humans were. How a species so young and fragile could feel so deeply, love so completely, create such beauty out of nothing. And she was thinking about Taiho, about his gentle voice, his patient eyes, the way he listened like she was the only person in the universe. She did not know what she was feeling. It was unfamiliar, confusing, a little frightening, but it was also beautiful. And for the first time in her life, Lyra did not want to understand it. She just wanted to feel it. Taiho stood before the Velen Council. There were 7 of them, seated in a half-circle on raised platforms. Their faces were cold and distant, their eyes watching him like scientists studying an experiment. In the center sat the eldest, a male named Korath, whose white hair fell to the floor and whose eyes seemed to hold the darkness of deep space. Speak, Korath commanded. Lyra stood beside Taiho, her hands clasped tight. She had prepared him for this moment for days. The council had demanded proof of his progress. If he could not demonstrate real ability in Velen, they would proceed with their plan to abandon Earth. Taiho took a breath. He thought about everything Lyra had taught him. Not the words themselves, but the feelings behind them. He thought about hope and fear, about longing and belonging, about the bridge between strangers. Then he spoke. He introduced himself in perfect Velen. He spoke of his world, his people, his journey to this ship. He spoke of the challenges he faced and the things he learned. Each word carried emotion. Each sentence was true. When he finished, silence filled the chamber. The council members looked at each other. Taiho could not read their expressions, but he felt the tension in the air. Korath spoke first. This is unexpected. He has learned quickly, another council member said. Too quickly. No human has ever progressed this far. It should not be possible, a third added. Our language is built on emotional truth. Humans are known to be deceitful creatures, capable of hiding their true feelings. How can he speak Velen when his species cannot be honest? I am honest, Taiho said. He had not planned to speak, but the words came out anyway. Not all humans are liars. Many of us spend our whole lives trying to be truthful, trying to connect with others, trying to understand. The council members stared at him. Speaking without permission was a serious violation of protocol, but Lyra stepped forward. He speaks the truth, she said. I have spent months with this human. He has never once tried to deceive me. He has shown me depths of feeling I did not believe his species possessed. Korath's eyes narrowed. You speak with too much emotion, Lyra. Perhaps you have spent too much time with the humans. Perhaps I have learned from them, Lyra replied. There was a strength in her voice that Taiho had never heard before. Perhaps we all can. The tension in the room grew thick. Taiho could feel something wrong, something dangerous brewing beneath the surface. Finally, Korath raised his hand. We have seen enough. Leave us. We will discuss and make our decision. Taiho and Lyra walked out of the chamber. Neither spoke until they reached the observation deck, far from the council's ears. What will happen now? Taiho asked. Lyra shook her head. I do not know. The council is divided. Some of them were impressed by your ability. But others. She paused. Others are afraid. Afraid of me? Of what you represent? Lyra looked at him with worried eyes. If humans can learn well and truly learn it, with all its emotional depth, then we can no longer dismiss your species as primitives. You become equals. You become threats. We are not threats, Taiho said. We just want to be friends. To learn. To share. I know. Lyra's voice was soft. But the Council does not see the universe the way you do. They see competition. They see danger. They see a young species that might one day surpass the old ones. They stood in silence, watching Earth turn below them. The answer came the next morning. Lyra found Taiho in his quarters. Her face was pale, her movements stiff. She did not meet his eyes when she spoke. I have been recalled, she said. Taiho felt his heart stop. What? The Council has ordered me to return to the collective. My assignment here is over. She finally looked at him, and he saw something in her eyes that he had never seen before. Pain. Deep. Terrible pain that she could not hide because in Velen, all feeling is visible. Why? Taiho asked. Is it because of me? Because I spoke out of turn? It is because of us. Lyra's voice was barely a whisper. The Council believes I have become too attached to humans. To you, they say my judgment is compromised. They say I can no longer be objective. Are they right? Lyra was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice trembled. I do not know what I feel. I have never felt this way before. It is confusing and frightening and wonderful all at once. But I know that when I think about leaving, it hurts. It hurts more than anything I have ever experienced. Taiho stepped closer to her. Then do not leave. I have no choice. The Council's orders are absolute. There is always a choice, Taiho said. You taught me that. You taught me that Velen is about truth, about honesty. Be honest with yourself, Lyra. What do you want? Lyra closed her eyes. When she opened them, tears were falling down her silver cheeks. I want to stay, she said. I want to learn more about your strange, beautiful species. I want to hear more of your music, more of your stories. I want to feel more of these impossible feelings. She looked at him, and her eyes were filled with stars. I want to stay with you, she whispered. Taiho reached out and took her hand. Her skin was cool and smooth, like touching water. She did not pull away. Then fight for it, he said. Fight for what you want. That is what humans do. We do not give up just because someone tells us to. The Council will not listen to me. Then make them listen. Show them what you have learned. Show them that humans are worth knowing, worth saving. He squeezed her hand gently. And if they still refuse, then we will figure something out. Together. Lyra looked at their joined hands. Such a simple gesture, yet it meant everything. In Velen culture, touch was deeply personal, reserved for family and the closest bonds. But with Taiho, it felt right. You believe in your people, she said slowly. You believe they are good. I believe they can be good, Taiho corrected. We make mistakes. We hurt each other. We destroy things. But we also love. We also create. We also hope. I believe that if your people give us a chance, we can be something wonderful. Lyra wiped her tears. A small smile appeared on her lips. You are very strange, Han Taiho, so I have been told. She laughed. It was the first time he had ever heard her laugh, and the sound was like bells ringing in the wind. I will talk to the Council, she said. I will try one more time, and if they do not listen... Lyra looked at him with those star-filled eyes. Then perhaps it is time for me to learn how to be human. She turned and walked toward the door. But before she left, she stopped and looked back at him. Thank you, Taiho, for everything. Thank you for not giving up on us. She smiled again. And then she was gone. Taiho stood alone in his quarters, his heart beating fast. He did not know what would happen next. He did not know if Lyra could convince the council, or if humanity would be abandoned, or if he would ever see her again. But he knew one thing for certain. He had fallen in love with a woman from the stars, and whatever happened next, he would not let her go without a fight. The council refused. Lyra returned from the meeting with empty eyes and heavy steps. She did not need to say anything. Taiho understood the moment he saw her face. "When do you leave?" he asked. "Tomorrow morning." Her voice was hollow. "A transport ship is already on its way." Taiho felt like someone had reached into his chest and squeezed his heart. What about Earth? What about humanity? The council has not made a final decision yet. They will continue to observe your planet. But I will not be here to argue for you anymore. Lyra sat down slowly, as if her body had become too heavy to carry. "I am sorry, Taiho, I failed." "No." Taiho sat beside her. "You did not fail. You opened my eyes. You showed me that the universe is bigger and more beautiful than I ever imagined. That is not failure." Lyra looked at him. Her eyes were dry, but the pain in them was overwhelming. "I do not want to leave. I know. I do not want to go back to my old life, where everything is predictable and nothing is surprising." Her voice cracked. "I do not want to forget how it feels to listen to music, to cry at stories, to hold someone's hand." Taiho did not speak. He simply took her hand in his, just as he had done before. She held on like he was the only thing keeping her from floating away into the darkness. They sat together for a long time, watching the stars. That night, Taiho could not sleep. He lay in his small bed, staring at the ceiling. His mind was racing with thoughts and feelings that he could not put into words. He thought about Lyra, about everything they had shared, about how much she had changed him. He thought about the Velon phrase she had taught him in their early lessons. The phrase for deep, unconditional love. It was considered sacred among her people, rarely spoken even between family members. To say it was to open your soul completely, to hide nothing, to give everything. Lyra had taught him the sounds, the hand movements, the facial expressions. She had explained what emotions must be present for the words to be true, but she had never expected him to use it. It was too intimate, too powerful that no outsider was ever meant to speak those words with sincerity. Taiho got out of bed. He walked through the empty hallways of the ship, his bare feet silent on the smooth floor. He did not know where Lyra was, but somehow he knew where to look. She was on the observation deck, alone, standing before the window that showed the stars. She did not turn when he entered, but she knew he was there. "You should be sleeping," she said softly. "So should you." Lyra shook her head. "This is my last night here. I want to remember the view." Taiho walked toward her slowly. His heart was pounding so hard that he was sure she could hear it. Each step felt heavy, important, like he was walking towards something that would change his life forever. He stopped beside her. Earth hung below them, blue and beautiful, covered in clouds that looked like white lace. "Lyra," he said. His voice was quiet but steady. "I need to tell you something." She turned to face him. Her star-filled eyes were sad and gentle. "I know," she said. "I know what you want to say, but please do not. It will only make leaving harder. I have to say it." Taiho took a deep breath. "I have been practicing something. Something you taught me a long time ago, before I really understood what it meant." Lyra's eyes widened. "Taiho, you told me that Velon is about truth, that every word must carry real emotion, that lying is impossible." He looked into her eyes. "I am not lying now. I am not trying to trick you or impress you. I just need you to know how I feel, in a language where feelings cannot be hidden." He closed his eyes and gathered himself. He thought about Lyra, about her kindness beneath the cold surface, about her curiosity, her wonder, her secret warmth. He thought about how she smiled, how she laughed, how she cried in a simple story about a woman waiting by the sea. He thought about how empty his life would be without her. And then he spoke. The words came out slowly, carefully. The sounds were complex, layered with meaning. His hands moved in the ancient pattern, drawing shapes in the air that his human body was never designed to make. His face changed, showing emotions that he had spent his whole life hiding: vulnerability, longing, hope, and yes, love. Deep, endless love. When he finished, silence filled the observation deck. Lyra was staring at him. Her whole body was trembling. Tears streamed down her silver cheeks, falling like drops of starlight. You said it, she whispered. The sacred words. The words that cannot be faked. I meant every part of it, Taiho said. I love you, Lyra. Not because you are beautiful or mysterious or from a world beyond the stars. I love you because you are kind and brave and you cared about my people when you did not have to. I love you because you taught me to see the universe in a new way. I love you because when I am with you, I am the best version of myself. Lyra could not speak. No one had ever spoken those words to her before, not in her language, and never with such honesty. She could feel his emotions as clearly as if they were her own. His love was real. It was powerful. It was terrifying and beautiful, and everything she had ever wanted, but never knew she needed. Taiho, she finally said. Her voice was breaking. I cannot stay, even if I want to. The council, I know. He stepped closer to her. I am not asking you to stay. I am not asking for anything. I just needed you to know the truth. Whatever happens tomorrow, whatever happens in the future, I wanted you to understand what you mean to me. Lyra looked at him through her tears. This strange, impossible human who had learned her sacred language, who had felt her deepest truths, who had somehow crossed the distance between their worlds, not with technology or diplomacy, but with simple, honest love. She reached out and touched his face. Her fingers were cool against his skin, but her touch was gentle. Among my people, she said slowly, there is a response to those words. It is only given when the feeling is mutual. When the truth is shared. Taiho held his breath. Lyra leaned closer. Her forehead touched his. In Velen culture, this was the most intimate gesture possible. The sharing of thoughts, of souls, of everything. I cannot say the full response, she whispered. Not yet. My feelings are still new, still forming. But I can say this much. She pulled back slightly so she could look into his eyes, and then, in a voice so soft it was barely audible, she spoke again. But this time, she did not speak in VEL and Dan. She spoke in Korean. Two simple words, learned in secret, practiced in the quiet hours of the night when no one was watching. Nadu. Me too. Taiho's heart stopped. Then it started again, beating faster than it ever had before. You learned Korean, he said, his voice shaking. Lyra smiled through her tears. You learned Velen for me. It seemed only fair. They stood together in the starlight, foreheads touching, hands clasped, breathing the same air. Behind them, the galaxy spun in infinite silence. Below them, Earth turned slowly in the darkness. And in that moment, nothing else mattered. Not the council. Not the decision about humanity. Not the morning that would come too soon. Just two souls, from different worlds, who had found each other against all odds. And that was enough. The morning came too quickly. Taiho stood in the docking bay, watching the transport ship prepare for departure. Valens moved around him, busy with their duties, paying him no attention. To them, he was just another human temporary. Forgettable, insignificant. But somewhere on this ship was Lyra, packing her things, preparing to leave forever. Taiho had not slept after their moment on the observation deck. He had stayed awake, holding on to the memory of her touch, her words, her smile. He knew he should feel grateful for what they had shared. He knew he should accept that some things were not meant to last, but he could not. The thought of losing her felt like dying. Human. Taiho turned. Voran, the council officer who had warned Lyra weeks ago, was standing behind him. His face was as cold and unreadable as ever. "You should not be here," Voran said. "This area is restricted. I came to say goodbye." Voran studied him for a long moment. "You truly care for her?" It was not a question. In Velen culture, emotions were always visible. Even a human's feelings could be read if one looked closely enough. "Yes," Taiho said simply. "I love her." Something flickered in Voran's eyes. Surprise, perhaps. Or something deeper. "The Council has made many mistakes over the centuries," Voran said slowly. "We have dismissed species that later proved valuable. We have abandoned worlds that later rose to greatness. Perhaps this is another mistake." Before Taiho could respond, a door opened on the other side of the bay. Lyra stepped through, carrying a small bag. She was dressed in the formal robes of a Velen traveler, ready for her long journey home. Their eyes met across the crowded space. Lyra froze. Something changed in her face, a decision being made, a truth being accepted. She dropped her bag, and then she walked toward Taiho, not slowly, not hesitantly, but with purpose, with certainty, with the confidence of someone who finally knew what she wanted. "Lyra." Voran stepped forward. "What are you doing?" "The transport is leaving soon. I am not going." Lyra's voice was clear and strong. "I am staying here." The entire docking bay went silent. Every Velen stopped what they were doing and stared. "You cannot do this," Voran said. "The Council has ordered. The Council is wrong." Lyra turned to face him, and there was fire in her star-filled eyes. "They have been wrong about humans from the beginning. This species is not primitive or worthless. They are extraordinary. They feel more deeply than we do. They love more fiercely. They hope more desperately. And they never, ever give up." She looked at Taiho, and her expression softened. "This human taught me more about truth in 3 months than I learned in 100 years among my own people. He opened my heart to feelings I never knew existed. He showed me that the universe is bigger and more beautiful than our carefully controlled lives allow us to see." She turned back to Voran. "I will not abandon him. I will not abandon his world. And if the Council wants to punish me for that choice, then let them. Some things are worth fighting for." Silence hung in the air. Voran looked at Lyra. He looked at Taiho. Then, slowly, something changed in his face. It was small, barely noticeable, but Taiho saw it. A crack in the ice. A glimmer of understanding. "I will inform the Council of your decision," Voran said. "But I warn you, there will be consequences. I know." Lyra took Taiho's hand. "I am ready for them." Voran turned and walked away. The other Velens slowly returned to their work, but they kept glancing at Lyra and Taiho with something like wonder in their eyes. They had never seen one of their own choose an outsider before. They had never seen anyone defy the Deus. Council for Love. 3 days later, the Council made their announcement. Humanity would not be abandoned. Instead, they would be placed on a new list, a list of species with potential value, subject to continued observation and possible future partnership. It was not the full acceptance that Taiho had hoped for, but it was a beginning, a chance. And there was something else. The Council recognized Han Taiho as the first human to truly speak. Velen, not just the sounds, but the emotions, the truth, the soul of the language. They gave him a title that had never been given to an outsider before. Velin-SOULED.1, who speaks truth from the heart. Lyra was assigned as Earth's first permanent Velen ambassador. It was partly a punishment exile from her home world, and partly an honor. She would be the bridge between two species. The first to truly understand both, she accepted without hesitation. On the day of the ceremony, Taiho and Lyra stood together on the observation deck, looking at Earth below. The planet was beautiful in the sunlight, blue and green and white, full of life and possibility. "What happens now?" Taiho asked. "I do not know," Lyra admitted. "Everything is new. Everything is uncertain. Are you scared?" Lyra smiled. "Yes, but you taught me that fear is part of love, part of life. The unknown is frightening, but it is also wonderful." She turned to face him, taking both of his hands in hers. "I never expected this," she said softly. "When I first met you, I thought you were just another primitive creature from a dying world. I thought humans were shallow, simple, unworthy of our attention. And now? Now I know that I was the shallow one." Tears formed in her eyes, but she was smiling. "Humans feel more than any species I've ever known. You love without logic. You hope without evidence. You give your hearts to strangers and stories and creatures that cannot understand you. It is irrational and dangerous and absolutely beautiful." She leaned closer, her forehead touching his in that intimate Velen gesture. "You showed me that love is not about understanding," she whispered. "It is about choosing. Choosing to care even when it is hard. Choosing to stay even when leaving is easier. Choosing to feel even when feeling hurts." Taiho felt tears in his own eyes. "I will always choose you, I know." Lyra pulled back slightly so she could look into his eyes. "And I will always choose you." They stood together in the starlight, two souls from different worlds, bound by something stronger than language or logic or law. Behind them, the stars stretched into infinity. Below them, Earth turned slowly, carrying its billions of humans, each one with their own capacity for love, for hope, for connection. Humanity's place in the galaxy had been secured. Not through technology or warfare, not through strength or intelligence, but through something no other species had expected. The simple, terrifying, beautiful power of love. Taiho remembered the words he had spoken to Lyra that night on the observation deck, the sacred Velen phrase for deep, unconditional love. He remembered the fear in his heart as he spoke them, the uncertainty, the vulnerability, and he remembered her response. Two words in Korean, spoken by an alien woman who had crossed the stars, just to learn his language. Na-do.me too. That was the moment everything changed. Not just for them, but for two species separated by light years and centuries of misunderstanding. One human, one Velen, one impossible love, and a beginning that would echo through the galaxy. Forever. Taiho smiled and squeezed Lyra's hand. "Welcome to Earth," he said. Lyra laughed at. Beautiful sound like bells in the wind and leaned into him. "Thank you," she said, "for teaching me how to love." Together, they watched the sun rise over their new world, and the stars kept spinning, indifferent and eternal, but somehow a little bit brighter than before.